Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head to Munich in Germany once again, and this is a brewery who I have never tried anything from, but they are actually one of the famous Oktoberfest breweries. So we are going to go to Spatenbräu München and we're having a taste of their Oktoberfestbier. Apparently there's two different versions of this. There's the Urmärzen, which is the sort of German domestic Oktoberfest beer, a bit stronger, and there's this one here which is a little bit lighter, and this is the export version of it. So I guess at some point I'll need to go back to Germany and get the proper German Spaten Oktoberfest beer. So hopefully I can do that in the fairly near future. I always love going to Germany. But anyway, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All of the usual websites are in the video description below. The brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I'll do in the future from Spaten, and also the Facebook profile for the channel. Please like it, and also my Untappd profile as well. So feel free to add me as a friend on there. Always interesting to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, so please do connect in whatever way you wish. And as always, German viewers, please let me know some German beers that you would like me to have a look at. I've done quite a few German beers actually, so just go and search for them in the channel. But anyway, the history of Spaten goes back to the year 1337 when it was first mentioned on the tax book of Hans Welser for his property on Neuhausergasse. So over the next 125 years the owners of the brewery changed many times, and in 1522 though, 100 years of ownership from the Starnberg family started, and it was the brewery ownership was quite stable after this. But the brewery was then owned by the Spaat family, who gave the brewery the name Spaten from 1622 until 1704, which was when the Seismeyer family took over until the year 1807. And in 1807 the brewery was then acquired by Gabriel Sedelmeier, and at this point it was actually the smallest brewery in Munich, but since 1807 the brewery has remained in the hands of his family. So in 1817 the company purchased the Spatenkeller in Bayerstrasse, but after Gabriel's death in 1839 his sons Gabriel Jr. and Josef took over the running of the brewery, and they were the ones who really started to make the brewery grow. So in 1861 Josef purchased Leist Brauerei, and they also built the new brewery facility in Marstrasse in the 1850s, and they moved all of the production over to this site. 1858 also saw the beginning of the partnership with Franziskaner, a very well-known German beer brand, but this was after Gabriel purchased the shares of August Dielmeier, who owned quite a big share in Franziskaner. But because of these expansions, Spaten was then the largest brewery in Munich until the end of the 19th century, by which time it had passed on to Gabriel Jr.'s sons Johann, Karl and Anton. So the brewery was in the third generation of this family at the point. But the company logo, this one here, as you can maybe guess, Spaten in German means spade, but this company logo as it is today was designed by Otto Hupp in 1884. So the brewery is credited with introducing the Helles beer and the Pilsner beers to Munich at the very end of the 19th century. But at this point, in the late 19th century, they also opened up a branch office in London, and then in 1909 they began their first exports to America. And before this, this was before the brewery passed over to the fourth generation of the Sedelmeier family in 1911, and this was Heinrich and Fritz. So in 1922 the Franziskaner brewery came under full ownership of the Sedelmeier family, and they established a contract of interest with Löwenbräu, who are one of the other famous Munich breweries. So the brewery was severely damaged, as many of them were, during the Second World War, the Allied bombing raids, but they began exports once again in 1950, and the brewery continued to grow strongly in the post-war years, and in 1922 they actually surpassed the 1 million hectolitres mark, so they were brewing over 1 million hectolitres of beer per year. But 1997 also saw the company celebrate their 600th anniversary, and then in this year as well they officially conjoined with Löwenbräu. So at this point you had a kind of very strong Munich beer partnership, almost the same way as Paulaner are joined with Hacker Pschorr, but in 2003 they joined the Belgian group InBev. So I think this brewery and Löwenbräu and Franziskaner, of course, are the only Munich breweries that aren't actually owned by German companies. Paulaner and Hacker Pschorr are owned by Brau Holding Incorporated, so it's actually a German company. So I think these are the only ones who aren't properly German owned anymore. So yeah, but the beer apparently is meant to be quite nice, so without further ado we will get it open. Just to list the other beers you can get from Spatenbräu though, they have a small range of beers. There's alcohol-frei, the Maibock, Münchner Dunkels, Münchner Hell, Optimator, Pils, Premium Bock, Premium Lager, and they always, as always, they have their Oktoberfestbier and the Urmärzen, which is the German domestic version of the Oktoberfestbier. And as you can tell just by this kind of little foam, this little foily cap on it, this is an imported version to Sweden. I got this in Systembolaget here, but I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at this one. This guy is, I think it's 5.9%, and it's an Oktoberfest Märzen beer, but as I say, it's different from the actual one that you will find in Germany, because this is the export version. But you can see there the horses in the kind of typical Bayerische attire pulling the thing there, and you can see, as I told you, Spaten in German means spade, and this is what the I'm saying this is the symbol of the brewery here, and it was designed in the late 18th century. But yeah, very nicely presented, foil cap on the top of this one. So without further ado, let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting here. As I say, this is my very first try of a Spaten beer. I've never tried any other stuff before, so really quite looking forward to it. You can see there quite a lot of bubbles heading up towards the opening there. And yeah, it looks a very nice beer, quite a smoky opening. I'll just pour out a little bit of it. I need, as I've said in my other Oktoberfest videos, I need to actually invest in a half-litre German tankard. I do have one back in Scotland, but I've never found one over here in Sweden yet, so that will be an investment that I make before I do any more German beer reviews. I always get comments from my German viewers saying you're not drinking the beer out the right glass, but it actually doesn't matter. The glass only affects the head formation. It doesn't affect the taste of the beer whatsoever. But as you can see, this beer is poured a nice kind of bright, clear, golden amber, very attractive looking beer. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see that it is transparent, and there was a nice finger of a frothy white head there. And this is only about half of the beer I've poured out here, and this is just so that I can have a look at the aroma. So let's have a look at that aroma now. Yeah, as you would expect from the kind of Oktoberfest beers, you've got the typical kind of big bready malt coming out of this one. I always love the Munich beers with the big bready malt characteristics. You always talk about a Dortmund Helles and a Munich Helles, and I always found the Dortmund one was a bit more hoppy and the Munich one was a little bit more bready. And I love a big bready malt base on the beer with some of these German noble hops. Really can't beat it, I think. But yeah, there's a nice toasty bready aroma with this one. A bit of caramel in there, but also some kind of biscuity, grainy characteristic. But there's a good bit of a German noble hop as well. These Oktoberfest beers always have quite a simple aroma, but they actually taste really, really nice. So yeah, from the German noble hops, and this one I'm guessing they'll be from the Hallertau region. There's a bit of earthy character, but mainly a kind of grassy and aromatic character. This one actually smells more grassy in comparison to the other Oktoberfest beers that I've had before. To me, the hop aroma from this one comes across as a little bit more grassy and just that little bit smoother. So it should be quite interesting to compare it to the other ones. So let's just put a little bit more in the glass for this before we get stuck into it. As you can see, I'm wearing the correct attire for this review, but my German shirt is missing a star. I need to get one with Miroslav Klose's name on the back and the 4th star for the 2014 World Cup. So I need to go and invest in that. But without further ado, let's get stuck into this beer. So this is the Oktoberfest beer, the export version from Spatenbräu in Munich. So we'll get stuck into this beer now. I hope you enjoy the review. Skål. Or I should say Prost, because it's a German review. But yeah, one thing that I've noticed when I've been doing these Oktoberfest beers is that the malt base on them does taste a little bit more boozy. My German flatmate Toby was telling me that the Oktoberfest beers you'll drink in Munich are nearer 10%, which I didn't know. I thought they were all the same as this. But you can definitely taste that in these Oktoberfest beers if you compare them to the German Helles. The malt base does taste just that little bit more boozy. But yeah, this one is really smooth. Definitely more malt forward than some of the other ones actually. Yeah, a really nice big bready character. That just blankets the middle of your tongue there. But on top of that, you can get a little bit of a kind of slightly cereally spice there. That grainy character to the breadiness in the beer is coming out really quite nicely. But there's a sort of biscuity, syrupy character to this beer coming out, and it's really quite nice. You'll just feel the sweetness around the middle of the tongue, but as you move a little bit further out towards the edges of the palate, there is a little bit of a kind of cereally, grainy, slightly spicy character there. And around the edges of the palate, where you expect the hoppy flavours to come out, you're definitely getting some of these German noble hops coming out. Actually, I was saying that the aroma for this beer, it comes across as being a bit more grassy, but when you actually have it in the mouth, this is one of the more aromatic. It's a bit more of a floral, aromatic, and maybe even slightly spicy hop character that comes out of this beer. It's quite nice and quite enjoyable, actually. It's nicely balanced. I always like these kind of Helles style beers that have a good bready base, but then you get a nice floral and aromatic hop out. It just balances it quite well. You've got a nice malty sweetness, but with a good bit of typical German sort of bitter hops in there. I really enjoy that. Yeah, really nice and enjoyable this. So, like I said, around in the middle of the palate you've got a nice smooth German kind of white bready character that just blankets the middle of the tongue. On top of it, there's a good little bit of caramel sweetness, but it comes across as a little bit grainy and a bit biscuity as well. It's almost like the kind of syrup you use to kind of bind biscuits together when you're making homemade biscuits. It reminds me of that. And around the edges of the palate you're getting the hoppy character, so it's actually, this one I'm finding it to be very floral and very aromatic. It's quite dry around the edges of the palate, so in terms of the Oktoberfest beers that I've tried, this is definitely one of the more kind of bitter and dry ones, I think, but it's really nice actually, and you can taste a little bit of the boozy character of this beer in the middle of the tongue. It's nowhere near the kind of booziness that you'll get from some of the really high-end American beers and things, but you notice the difference. If you're used to drinking Munich Helles like I was, living in Germany, you do notice that this beer in the malt base is just a bit more boozy than the Munich Helles or something like this. But yeah, that's a really nice beer. I have to admit, you know, I can recommend that if you like a more hoppy version of beers, then if you want a specific Oktoberfest beer, then this is probably one to go for actually. I'd be interested to compare it to the Urmärzen and see what the difference is, so hopefully, as I say, I can do that in the future. But this one is really quite nice, and it's actually got a little bit of citric character in it as well. Around the front edges of the tongue, the very front curve, the hop becomes a bit more grassy and a bit smoother, but then there's a nice citrusy, slightly citric character just behind the very front. But overall, the hop characteristics in this beer are mainly aromatic and floral, quite dry actually, then the smoother grassy character comes out around the front of the tongue, and there's just a little bit of citrus behind the very front too, and in the back corners perhaps just a little bit of earthy character. But overall, a really nice Oktoberfest Märzen beer, as I say, quite forward in the floral aromatic hops, so if you like that, give the Spaten Oktoberfest beer a go. But in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I would definitely say light-bodied, probably pushing mid-bodied actually. Quite an oily mouthfeel, but the carbonation is typically German. It's very smooth. It's got a nice malty sweetness to it, but the malty character, I think, leans a bit more to being more cereally actually. But the most prominent characteristic of this beer for me is the sort of floral and aromatic dry hop character in this one. It's really nice, and if you, as I say, if you enjoy a more florally aromatic hop character from your beers, if you're wanting an Oktoberfest beer, then this is probably the one to go for. Some of the other ones are a bit more bready and a bit more malt forward, but if you like the more hop forward beers, go for the Spaten Oktoberfest beer. And like I say, hopefully I can review the Urmärzen at some point for you in the near future, but I don't think I'm going to find that outside of Germany. But anyway, it's been cool to do my very first beer review from Spaten. Always cool to try new breweries from different countries, so hopefully I can review some more of their other beers in the fairly near future. I hope you've enjoyed the review. Let me know in the comment section below your own thoughts on the beer if you do happen to have tried it before. Always interesting to hear from you guys that are watching the videos. So until my next review, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I do have one more Oktoberfest beer to review for you from Spatenbräu, so do stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see it, but I thank you for watching my beer reviews. I hope you're enjoying them, and I will catch you soon with the next one. Slàinte just now.